NerdandSon.
Welcome, everyone. This is the NerdandSon podcast. I'm Son, and that's Nerd.
I am Nerd.
It took me a second.
A little bit backwards from doing it and everything, so yes.
My name's Connor. I am the one who's talking right now.
And I am Ralph. I am Nerd. I am the one.
You gotta say I'm the one who's talking right. You gotta be like, I'm Ralph. I'm the one who's talking right now. So that anyone who's new,
I'm talking now. You're actually talking then.
Anyone who's new to the podcast can be like, oh, okay, these two nerdy white guys. I don't know who's who, and then
I don't know if I actually identify like that anymore.
As nerdy?
I don't. Oh, God. Okay. So what are we talking about today?
Today we are continuing on our little thing where I am introducing Dad to a new system. Because, he is very much, played the same D&D campaign for 10 years. He's been playing, every single edition of D&D. And, how many other systems have you played in the past?
I've played Hero. I've played some kind of super one. It was very cartoony. What else did we play? Weird Wars. It's still a D&D kind of based offshoot.
But yeah, a lot of the old games were a lot of D20,
right. It's been mostly D20 stuff. Yeah. And it's like OG, even the superhero one was a D20 based game, so.
Yeah. And so
and I'm going to have to apologize. I have allergies. It's making my eyes water and stuff like that, so I'm blinking a lot here, so apologize.
I didn't notice. But yeah, so I just wanted to introduce something that has come out and has been something I really like, even if I haven't gotten to play it so much, but just to introduce a completely separated from the D20 system and completely separated in just a different way to use the dice, completely separate dice. So I wanted to just introduce a thing I really liked and just show how there's so much you can do in so many different systems and stuff and different ways that you can have a TTRPG.
Yeah, so that's cool to me. I know last week we actually built, or you showed me how to build character building and the process and everything going on that way. So what are we talking about this week?
Well, I was going through and I was gonna make a party and then go through how combat works, starship combat works, and do examples and stuff using all the different things. But then I spent several hours making these characters because I had to then take notes on what's different between the different books. And it really, it turned into a lot more. So it's a lot of the differences in the books, and then I go into a bit of combat. But combat's actually really easy in the game, and how it all works. So it's nothing. So there's not too much to sit there and go well, this is this and this is,
Okay. Well,
so
I'm ready.
all of that was kind of on my part a waste of time when I could have just explained how these systems work.
You don't know when you start taking notes what directions you head sometimes, because I've done that where I've scrapped complete hours worth of work and went a complete different direction or something.
Yep. And then I was really upset because I don't have a group right now to play Star Wars. And as I was making these characters, I was like, I love this. I would love to play this.
Okay. That's cool.
Every character I made, I was like, this is a character I want to play. Yeah. My first thing is a little bit of a gripe. If you can see this first picture I have, this is a screen grab from the PDF that I have.
Okay.
And if you see, it is because of the picture and how it's formatted, it's kind of hard to read. if you could pop this over, right? Because it goes, the PC gains.
Yeah, I'll post this out on the video when we do when I do my edit.
Yeah, starting XP, the PC gains when the player, and then skip to a whole nother paragraph, it looks like, to continue the sentence, and then cuts off words to go into this weird, slant. I did not like this.
Yeah, it's not the easiest
and I wanted to complain. Yeah, and this is one of really the only places it really happened. It just really stood out to me, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is just kind of bad."
Yeah, the formatting is not the best on this. So, oh well.
So I mean, if you're gonna have a big if you want to put in a picture and it's really a really diag because you have the lightsaber going out, and it's I feel like this had to have been some kind of compromise where it was this is the best we can do with this, with this artwork and what we're trying to do at this point, right?
Because they wanted to keep the character format similar to the slant of the lightsaber, so it's not the easiest to do. It's actually easier to change the spacing between the letters than it is to cut some of these words off the way they did.
Yeah, exactly. So.
All right.
So yeah, so the first thing, right, as I showed last week, you have the 3 big books of your different forms of play for Star Wars and your different focuses in the Star Wars universe, right? And when I made another character, my next character I made was under the Jedi, right?
Okay.
And the big focus, right, a lot of the things, it's all interchangeable. The big changes are equipment and your classes, your species, and a separate system. So remember how last time I went through obligation, right? Yes. And how the obligation system worked, and we had a character who had a bounty, and that was the connection to your story, right? Well, this one introduces a similar system called morality. All right. Now, this is specifically, it is the Force and Destiny's version of obligation, and this kind of determines if you're on the light or the dark side.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So when you're playing, you either choose your obligation or morality, or can you do both?
You can do both. Actually, in this, in my character that I made, I had both an obligation and a morality.
Okay.
And then we'll get into later in this episode. We're going to talk about duty, which is the third one. I said duty.
Yeah, I'm never growing up, so.
So, but this one is as you do things, and we'll get into how this works in the game. But your morality score will go up and down depending on the choices that you make.
Okay.
And it really changes when you get to the higher and lower sides, right? Because below 30, and you are a dark side user. Remember when I was telling you about the light side and the dark side points that the GM uses? You would use the dark side points.
Okay.
You would do, it says in where do I have it? I don't know where I put it, but it was talking about how you would, if you're in a dark side, you would lower your strain threshold, but increase your wounds as as a mechanical thing, and you would use your dark side points and for your force abilities and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then above 70, and you're a paragon of light, and you gain strength. You increase your strain total. And that was really all it turned out to. It was your strain and your wounds and increasing or decreasing. And it just really, I don't think it really, other than being a light side or a dark side user, it really has a lot of mechanical punch to it.
Okay. Which,
in this system, you're not really looking for a mechanical punch. You're looking for the soft narrative stuff,
Okay.
So, it's something just to work on. So, as you would, if you have a thing that happens, you have a conflict
Okay.
What you would do is there's a lot of words that are going to go at you. Okay, so during your thing, you gain or subtract conflict. Okay, so let's say you decide to, and I'll get into some moral conundrums, right? Because this isn't explained well in the book, but I did see on a on the Star Wars RPG subreddit, a user by the name of Deleted put in. I just had to check because I was like, oh no, I didn't put it in the notes, and then I went to look. But on this thread about the morality system, they put in a really good way, and I have it here, a really good way for to go, hey, here's what you can do to gain or increase, or right.
Okay.
You give your characters moral conundrums, right? If you do this, it's easier, but you'll gain conflict. You failed a social check to convince the merchant to give you the information. I'll let you take 4 conflict to threaten him and gain it anyway. You can't take cover here. You can take cover here to add 4 black dice, but it puts people in harm's way. Are running away? Well, you can drop a bridge, right? You've got your force powers, you're holding up a bridge. And you could drop it and possibly injure people, but you get away. You get an easy check instead of a hard to run away.
Okay. So is the morality at that particular point in the questions actually run by the actual DM itself, set on the challenges?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so everything is really... because everything with this is very soft. It's not a, if this happens, do this. It's a conversation between the GM and the players and the group and everything, in how all of this works out and how this it's a negotiation and a conversation about what would, what is that, how much conflict is this worth, or how much is,
okay,
but those are the kinds of things that you would have.
So at the end of the game session, you would actually have a certain amount of conflict numbers?
Yes. So you tally up those conflict numbers that you get, and then at the end of the session, you roll a 1d10. Okay?
Okay.
If the d10 roll is higher than their conflict, you add the difference to your morality.
Okay. So you want to keep your conflict count low as possible.
You want to keep it high. You want to keep it. Yeah, you want to keep
you want to keep it conflict counter as low as possible if you want to stay on the light side during your encounters. Okay,
exactly. Yes,
but if you're not worried about going to the light side, you can add up as many conflict points as you want, especially take you towards the dark side. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And I also forgot to mention that you generally start at 50.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, so, and then you go up and down as you play. And so this is where, and so let's say you roll 1d10, you get, 4 conflict for doing something in your session. You roll a 1d10, you get a 6. And so because it's a 6 on the die and it's higher than your conflict, you add the difference to your morality.
Okay.
Because you kept it low, so you gained, you got a little better. And so if you're a paragon and you don't do anything, and you don't gain any conflict, you still roll that 1d10, just you add that because you're not, subtracting any conflict.
Right.
So if you have a force user character, you're always going to roll that d10 at the end of the session.
So that makes sense. So if I actually want to be the best paragon of light, if I want to, and I've topped everything out, I can spend a night raveling at the bars as long as I don't take more than 30 points. I'm good. I'm still a paragon.
There you go.
There we go. Every once in a while, a Jedi gets to have some kind of fun, right?
Yeah, I mean, what's the point of having that score, just to go down?
All right.
So, it increases, it gives you a bit of wiggle room to sit there and, you can still have this paragon of stuff that still do some, questionable things as long as that score doesn't go awry. So that's the morality system. And let's see. Yes. So that's the big change. Your other change is that you have your different careers and specializations. Okay.
Okay.
And this is like straight. If you are a Star Wars nerd, these are going to make your heart happy, because a lot of it is like, oh, you have your consular, and it's things straight out, like, literally. I didn't go back in to check on this because I don't have it downloaded and I don't want that in my life right now. But I'm pretty sure you take your career, and if you look at the specializations in there, it's straight out of the SWTOR MMO.
Okay.
And it's literally like, oh, you've got a Jedi consular. These are your here's your like specializations, your subclasses.
Okay. And just in case nobody knows what SWTOR is, it's Star Wars, the Old Republic.
Yep.
Online game. So.
Yep. And so you have stuff like that, and then every single career, one of the subclasses is the lightsaber combat style.
Okay.
And the combat style reflects, because you have like 7 different lightsaber combat styles in the lore, and you have 6 subclasses. So one of them's out of here, but they really match up with a style of Jedi. You have like a more negotiator, so you'll have a more a more like defensive style.
Okay.
Or some of them are more aggressive, and some of them are very force focused, and some of them are specifically about blocking lightsabers, and some of them are specifically about blocking deflecting blaster bolts and stuff like that. And it gets into like the kind of Jedi you are and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, and then another thing that is in here is a group resource. I didn't put too much in there.
Okay.
Let me pull it up.
Cool. Okay.
Yep. So in Edge of the Empire, you know how you got to choose a group. You got to choose a starship, right? And that was part of the character creation.
Yes.
This one is your group resource, right?
Okay.
It's got Jedi Holocron. Starship is one of them, and then Mentor is another one. Not one that necessarily comes around with you, but a point of contact, somebody who is in basically a what do you call it? A benefactor or something.
Benefactor. Okay.
So that's in there. Your Obi-Wan Kenobi gets killed. Spoilers.
Damn. Okay.
And then those are really the big changes in here. Is the your morality and your and I should probably talk about how the force works in here. That's what I was waiting for.
Okay.
The force works just like any other skill specialization, where you have your tree, right? When
Right.
we're looking at it last, it works the same way, where you invest your points and you get, you go down the tree of this particular force ability, where you buy into the force ability of the basic one, and then you can level it up through the tree.
Okay.
And there's certain ones where you have to be like a certain like force level, and so you have to get through. You have to also do in your specialization tree. You have to go through there so that you can level up your force ability, because that's on the bottom of all of those, is to go up a level in your force mastery. And then you can then work on, higher level force abilities.
Okay.
So
this makes sense.
A lot of places for you to put your XP. So yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So far it's not too terribly complicated, so
yeah. And those are the only differences, right?
Okay.
Then we move into duty. Which is the Age of the Republic's
Sorry, I rolled
version of
good, so I'm going
obligation.
to take the higher morality and earn points on that instead of conflict, so I'm not going to make a joke.
There you go. So you have duty, which is the score of your groups fighting the good fight, right?
Okay.
So just like in obligation, how you have like group scores, you have a group score for duty.
Okay.
And how it works is you find out what kind of thing you want to do for the rebellion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the empire, right? If you're doing like an empire campaign, you could do this for the empire as well. Okay. So some of the different duties, you have a combat victory, you have intelligence, you have personnel, political support, sabotage, tech procurement, right? You have it's different things that you're trying to do for the rebellion.
Okay.
And so it's all about just getting what's the word? Just if you do things in line with your with the way you want to help the rebellion, then you gain points.
Okay.
And that's determined with, that's in, conversation you have with your GM on how many points you get for specific actions. And I thought, I thought this system was interesting in how it came up, because it wasn't like a roll. There is a roll involved, but it wasn't like obligation where you roll to see if it comes up, right?
Okay.
This one, it is more of a reputation. The more points you have, the more popular you are with the rebellion, and you can use it. And the book suggests you use it as like a threshold. So
Okay.
maybe a rebel leader won't talk to a group whose duty score is under 60, but a neutral governor won't talk to a group whose score is above 50. We're like, oh, you've helped the rebellion too much, I can't be seen talking to you. Or, somebody else is like, you haven't done enough for the rebellion, so I'm not going to even entertain this conversation.
Okay.
Which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
So how it works, right, is you roll a D100, and if it's above this duty score, nothing happens. And then if it's equal to or below, then you give a mechanical advantage. And then doubling the advantage if doubles are rolled.
Okay.
Okay? So you know how it was like the D100 where like, somebody's duty is like 1 through 10 and another person's is 11 through 20. And you roll in the D100 to see who pops up. So this kind of is the same way, where let's say somebody's 1 through 15, right? And you roll a 12. That means that, that person's duty, they're emboldened by their duty, and they are they gain, what was it? It was a wound threshold. Like you are able to push through more.
Okay.
And you gain a wound threshold of 1.
Okay.
And then let's say, 11 is rolled. That's a double.
Gotcha.
So you gain 2 of your wound threshold.
Okay.
And everyone gains it because that's a big thing, and like, you are emboldened to push through your mission, right?
Okay. That makes sense.
So it's just a little thing. And then another interesting thing, right? Because you're only working through 1 through 100, right?
Yes.
Well, what happens if you get your duty to 100?
Don't know.
You prestige.
Okay. You got a whole another prestige 100 to go by?
Yep, exactly. So you gain what is it called? What did they call it? Contribution. It's a contribution score. So once you get to 100, your contribution becomes 1, and then you start back at 0. Then you go back to 100, and then you go to, and then you go to 2.
Okay.
And for the purposes of, that reputation thing, you're still going to count that as like, oh, it's 150, because you've done a lot. It doesn't go away just because, you spilled over and kept moving.
Okay.
And it says that every time that you do another contribution, you prestige basically, the alliance the Rebel Alliance would give you a reward or something. And the reward is suggested as like an equipment, another vehicle, or a strategic asset or something like that.
Okay. So, and it gives a reward out to everybody, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because if it's like
because
episode
this would be like
4, they
like,
only gave rewards out to the actual humans. They left the Wookiee out. I mean, they were just racist right there.
Excuse me, he got a medal. He got a medal.
Did he get a medal? I don't think he got a medal.
Oh, did he not get a medal?
No, he didn't get a medal. She gave one to Han, she gave one to Luke. But Chewbacca didn't get anything. Racism in our Star Wars movies.
Actually, the Star Wars books and comics revealed that Leia gave Chewbacca a medal after the ceremony because he was too tall for her to reach.
You have to retcon that shit in, okay?
You have to retcon the racism.
Hi guys, if you want to take a break from role-playing and watch someone burn their face off while eating hot peppers, head on over to YouTube at 13 Peppers and like and subscribe. And if you want to grow these peppers yourself, you can actually purchase these seeds at 13peppersbyralph.com. With that, have a good day.
Okay.
All right, because that's what we're going to go into next. How combat works. Because with a more narrative stuff, you still have combat. You still have, this system endeavors to achieve a cinematic experience. And so, therefore, you still need your action set pieces. You still need all that. And so there are, basic rules on how the turns and everything go.
Okay.
And it's still it is a very bare bones system, not out of, laziness of how to because there's a lot in here. I'm hitting on the bullet points, but there is, a lot of things you can do in a lot of ways that it goes you can do this, or you cannot do that and, have a talk with your GM and have some narrative go on.
So, but if you're describing it in your narrative and you're talking and describing and stuff like that, it should be able to work itself out without a problem.
Exactly. It's very bare bones in order to allow for, creativity and flexibility.
Okay.
So, the first thing you do, of course, as with anything, is you roll initiative. And if you remember from last week, you have your cool in your vigilance and the different checks that you would make depending on the situation you're in.
Right.
And I don't remember if I told you or not, but an interesting difference is you don't go by your score. You go by a PC slot or an NPC slot for initiative. So as soon as you get your initiative and you figure out who's got where, anything that the PC rolled and anything that the NPC rolls are PC and NPC slots. So it doesn't matter who rolled that top slot. If somebody has something they want to do to open it, they can ask for that slot and they can go right there. And then it's just who wants to go next.
Oh, so there's not a specific order. It's just an order who...
Yeah, let's say it's PC, PC, NPC, PC, right?
Right.
You can anybody go in those slots.
Oh,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who rolled what. You can, you can tag team, do different chain abilities together, stuff like that.
Okay.
If you think something's cool and you have a plan, you can make that happen.
Okay.
The turn, just like in D&D, right, where you have your action, your bonus action, and your free action. Right. Here, it's the same thing, but with mostly different names, right? You still have your action, which is anything that would require a check.
Okay.
You have your maneuvers, which is any action that it's still a more major action, but it doesn't require a skill check.
Okay.
Right? And then you have your incidentals, which are minor things that don't take up like actually moving around.
Okay.
Or
is this all set up in like in a time second, like 6 seconds?
It's real loose, real loosey goosey.
Okay. Loosey goosey. Okay.
Right. Because it's just like it's really, you know, because sometimes the camera, the action is going on around you, but you've got, you know, the camera on one person, and that's really what the turn is supposed to look at, is when the camera cuts. You know, you're in an action scene, and you know you've got people shooting around, right?
Okay.
You know, in Star Wars, most of the shots are misses. You know, you're not gonna shoot, you're not gonna hit every single time, and
what are you playing, a freaking band of stormtroopers?
I mean, well, look at the Mandalorian, right? When they're in like a corridor shooting each other, right?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it is just like blank fire. You know, they're shooting like that. It's just covering fire. You know, they're just kind of like taking pot shots at each other. And it isn't until you get a moment where the camera is on a specific character, and that's when they, you know, go in for the kill.
Okay.
So, you know, the action's going on at all of the whole time, but you've got that specific moment where, you know, you could have at the same time that somebody's shooting off into the, you know, shooting at the enemies, you have, you know, your person like slicing into the computer and stuff like that, trying to while they're being, you know, shot at.
Right.
So, and this is what it's meant to be. Like, it's not necessarily like a hard, this is 6 seconds, and, you know, then the next person goes. So you have your actions, your maneuvers, and your incidentals. Okay. You know, and your incidentals are, you know, free things, you know, talking, and dropping something, and minor movements like peeking a corner, looking behind somebody, shifting your position a little.
Okay.
And that's not to say like taking cover or moving to another, you know, range. And we'll get into the different range bands, as it's called, and like moving between range bands. That's a maneuver.
Okay.
But incidentals are just real easy stuff, you know. And you can take as many as you want within reason, right? If you start taking up too much going on, then, you know, there's a little too, you know, if you're actually having a conversation while you're supposed to be taking your turn, that's a bit like talking between the characters.
Okay.
Then you as the GM might be like, let's cut this out. You got to actually do something, you know?
Okay. Makes sense.
And maneuvers, you know, you can aim, you can, you know, do stuff like open doors, take cover, and move between range rings. Okay? Or range bands. And then actions, of course, you know, your actual attacking, like I said, slicing computer, doing first aid on somebody, stuff like that. Anything that would require a skill check, really, is your action.
Okay. So why do they call it slicing a computer? I understand what it's supposed to say, but that is just a weird term to me.
I mean, that's just how it's been. I don't know. It's just a Star Wars
thing. I don't remember
ever
heard them saying in a Star Wars movie that I got to slice into the computer.
It is definitely something I've heard, and I don't know if it's like in the movies and stuff, but it's definitely what they call it in the in like the books and stuff like that.
Okay. That's where my question was.
Yeah, and it is definitely in line with Star Wars, but it is. I don't know if they've ever said it in. Yeah, that's weird, but I've definitely, because I've read the novels and stuff, and like that's all over the place. You know, you have your slicers and stuff like that. So that's that's an interesting question.
Okay, just an odd thing. That's what I thought.
But yeah, there's definitely. Have you read a lot of the Star Wars novels and stuff?
I have. Okay. How many have I read? I've read I think I've read 10 or 12 of them total, but they're all the ones that's been thrown out. Okay.
Yeah.
The whole series with Han's son, and his kid and his force things and his abilities and all that kind of stuff, which has been thrown out and is no longer canon. And then the
technically he had 3 kids with Leia.
Yeah, well,
there was Jason,
this was
Jaina,
Jason.
and Anakin.
Yeah, Jason was the one that was the issue. And then I started reading the New Republic, where Leia was a big-time senator.
Yep.
And that was all thrown out too. So.
Yeah,
and I think I only got into four books into that one. And at that time when I was reading that, I'm like, okay, so all this crap that I'm reading here now has nothing to do with anything going forward. So why am I still reading this?
It is definitely one of those things. It's like, the point I'm trying to get at is that there is a very specific way that writers write, and there's a Star Wars speak. There's a language.
Yeah.
And a pattern to how everything, you have slicing, and you have things that have been brought into canon now, where you have slicing and you have, cursing, where you have people, like in Mandalorian, where they go like dank ferric, and like stuff like that. Very specific Star Wars speak and slang that is, very specific.
Okay. Now, was that in the older books? Because I don't remember listing or reading that.
It's been something that's been brought up.
Okay, then I just never caught it. I never caught it then. I understand what
it
it's
was
supposed to
also,
mean, so I might have just took it in for that saying and then just not picked up on it.
That's fair. Yeah, it's one of those things, like, if you're not like paying attention and you don't know that, you're not really like, but it's one of those things. It's like, especially after they threw out the canon, and then Dave Filoni gets in and starts making stuff, and you start seeing the things that he's bringing into the canon and stuff like that, where you're like, oh, that's a nice touch that, like, is now back.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool, and there's been a lot of good stuff.
Okay.
So
what was the series, and this is also something else that was thrown out, where Chewbacca died because they had a planet fall on him, like crashed?
I don't know.
I'm trying to think what series that is.
I don't know.
That's another one that I read decades ago. Yeah. Sorry, spoilers in a non-canon book now.
Yes, spoilers to a book.
That's how you kill Chewbacca. You drop a planet on him.
Or I'm going to spoil episode 9 for you. We're going to go on episode 9 now.
That's fine, because I have no desire of seeing it.
So, in episode 9, there's a point in which they capture Chewbacca, okay? The First Order, they capture Chewbacca, and they have him going off. You watch him get captured, get into the transport, and then you see the transport leave, and Rey goes, no! And as she's like screaming, she shoots force lightning and blows the ship up.
Okay.
All right.
And
then it turns out there was another transport. And so Chewbacca was alive. And they cut to that. But like, you are led to believe, and like, without any other previous information that would tell you that there was a second transport that he was on, they make it seem like Rey accidentally kills Chewbacca and then immediately cuts to, I don't care. I don't care about like what political stuff you want to get into about, Star Wars or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a bad scene. That is a bad cutting. That is bad giving the audience the information. It is just bad.
Yeah.
So it was one of the failures, I'm not even going to get into the rest of it, because I think there's some good stuff and I think there's some bad stuff. But generally, that is one of the moments that really stands out to me as like, oh no, that's not good.
Yeah, there's this. I don't know.
You just reminded me when you were talking about killing Chewbacca.
Yeah.
It brought that back. Anyway, range bands.
Okay. Let's get back into this. Okay.
So instead of, having a very hard line, this is you are six feet away, you are 30 feet away, you know, and having very rigid movement and grid movement, basically.
Right.
Said you have range bands, okay? And you can take a maneuver to move between them, except for the longest one away, okay? So,
short to medium, to medium to long, and then long to extreme. Which that's fine.
And engaged, you know, engaged to short, medium, long, extreme, you know, and you can take a maneuver to move between those, except for long to extreme, in which you take 2 maneuvers. Because you can take, I forgot to mention that you can forego your action to take 2 maneuvers.
Which that makes sense. That's kind of standard.
Yep.
Okay.
And so then you have your attack difficulties based on your range bands, and it just, you know, gets harder as you keep going along.
Okay.
And so I have an example combat check here.
Okay.
Right? So when you're doing combat, right, you have a simple check with modifiers, and every uncanceled success adds +1 to your damage. Okay?
Okay.
And then, you know, you subtract your soak value from the incoming damage, and that's how much damage you take. Okay?
Okay.
Pretty easy, pretty simple.
That doesn't sound hard at all. So you're just a basic.
It's not. So as you can see, right, the first picture here is the dice pool. I did not roll.
Okay.
And the reason that we have this thing, right, Marthorn, the commando I created, goes to shoot a stormtrooper. He uses his ranged heavy skill, which, if we go to, you know, Marthorn's character sheet, the ranged heavy skill, we have 2 points into that, and the ranged heavy skill uses the agility. We have 3 agility, and we have 2 points into the into that skill.
Right.
So you take
so
that
you
3
get your
agility.
Right. So
you
that
upgrade 2 of those
to yellow. Yep.
So that's how we are getting this. And then we are getting that blue dice because he used his maneuver to aim, right? Which allows you to add a boost die to the roll. Okay. And because this is at medium
range. You said
range,
blue, so you meant boost.
Blue is boost die. When I'm sitting here, I'm trying to. It's a struggle because I'm telling you how the system works, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm trying to use the right words.
Okay.
But when I'm at my table and I'm just talking about this system, I just use the colors.
Okay.
Because I'll just be like, oh yeah, you add a blue for this, you know, because that's how it shows up in the book. It'll be like, you know.
The reason I'm asking because I'm going to throw this picture up, and I just want to explain that it's supposed to be boost, not blue. Okay. Yeah.
So in the book, it'll literally be like, if you have a skill or something, it'll be like add blue square, and it'll literally have just a blue square to the check for, you know, this. Okay. And that's how it does it. So it's, you know, it's easier to sit there and not translate in your head, to sit there and just go blue, green, yellow, purple, red, black. It's pretty easy, you know. Okay. It's easy just to say the colors.
Yeah.
So, and because this is at medium range, this is an average check, which means there's 2. Oh God, what? Shit. I forgot what the purple ones are standing. Difficulty die. Okay, you had 2 difficulty die.
Okay,
which are the purple ones.
Okay.
I was about to say just add 2 purples.
Yeah.
So, moving on, right? We roll the check, and as you can see, we have gotten the total of the entire check before we do any maths here is 1 triumph, 2 successes, 2 advantages, and 2 failures. Okay? So those two successes cancel out those 2 failures, cancel out those 2 successes. So we are left with a triumph and 2 advantage.
Okay.
The triumph counts as a success for the purpose of this, right? It counts as a success. So we have 1 success, 1 triumph, and 2 advantages. That's the end result of this check. Of this check.
Okay.
1 triumph, 1 success, 2 advantages. Okay?
Okay.
That, because of the stat line of our gun, the success, it does 9 damage and 3 crit. So 9 damage, because we had a success, it's always 9 damage.
Okay.
Right? So no matter what, we succeeded the check, it does 9 damage. If we were to get more successes on the roll, we would do +1 damage every single...
For every additional success, okay.
For every additional success. But we do 9 damage, and because we got the triumph, we do a crit. So that's 3 damage.
Okay.
That is a total of 12 damage going into... I forgot to say, shooting a stormtrooper, right?
Yeah.
So, going into the stormtrooper is 12 damage. Then, the soak on the soak value for the stormtrooper on the stat line is 5. And the wounds is 5. So,
okay.
You subtract 5, which means it's 7 damage going into the stormtrooper. And that's to, because stormtroopers have good armor against what you're led to believe.
Right.
And that's, that becomes 5.
Okay.
And then because it's got 5 wounds, we did 7 damage. How that would normally work is if there were multiple opponents, that 2 wounds would then carry over to the next stormtrooper to show that, you're shooting multiple times and okay. Because you can have so much damage and stuff like that going out, this is a pretty tame roll, know.
Okay.
So
can I just make an observation from the way you describe it and the way I'm looking at the notes and everything
like
go
that?
For it. This is like some old school people that's actually created this game, because you know what this reminds me of? THAC0. Yeah.
Would you like to explain THAC0?
To hit armor class 0. Some modifications that you had to do for all creatures in 1st and 2nd edition. And then you based your damage and your rolls and everything off that. Amazing.
We should have a episodes where we go through like old D&D and like talk about that.
Yeah, today's is a lot easier with the modification and the rolls and stuff like that. But yeah, having to calculate THAC0 and what you have to do to hit THAC0 and all your creatures all the time was a pain in the butt. I mean, now it's a pain in the butt if I had to go back there and relearn it. But at the time, because that's the way you always did it, it becomes easy. Like, for example, you do this thing a lot, this becomes easy.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem. I just thought that parallel in my head, and I thought that was kind of funny.
It's interesting because, you hear about these systems. I've seen how to do THAC0, but I've never done it before. And I just remember looking at it and going, "Oh, Jesus Christ, absolutely not! That's disgusting." Okay. It's THAC0 and the grappling rules for 3rd edition.
Oh God, those sucked. They still suck. So, and Pathfinder is probably the best one that's actually done grappling.
So, yeah, we can talk about Pathfinder next time.
Yeah, that could actually be easy.
Okay.
So. Okay, listen to this. Listen to this. Okay. Armor class. Okay. The type of armor worn, the inclusion of a shield, magical factors, and dexterity are inclusions in an overall armor class. The size ratio is also important at times, i.e. Dwarf adds 4 factors to his armor class if he adds 4 factors to his armor class if his opponent is a giant. For example, Splint Mail is armor class 4, and if a shield is added, armor class becomes 3. But suppose it's a magical +1 shield, then armor class becomes 2. Now, assume that the character has Displacer Cloak +2, that becomes 0. And furthermore, because the character has a 16 dexterity, the final bonus is +2 is giving, and the armor class for a character is -2. If the character is a dwarf, a giant attempting to hit him would also have an armor class bonus of -6 because the size difference for the differential penalty. So, did you like that one?
I immediately lost. I immediately lost it. Like the second, like after the first line you start, I was like, wait, I'm already lost.
See, this is all coming back to me. Okay, now let us take the character through a few attacks. First, the dwarf is engaged in melee against the band of 7 hobgoblins. His shield bonus is only good against the maximum of 3 opponents, so the 4th hobgoblin would attack his armor class 0. Furthermore, as a dwarf can only see and react to opponents before him, the same 4 hobgoblins would also attack the dwarf without the latter getting dexterity bonus, so their attacks would be against the armor class of 2. Similarly, if a giant hurls boulders at the dwarf rather than struck at him with their weapons, his dexterity and size bonuses would not occur to him. So instead of AC -6, the boulders would attack a target with AC of 0.
Sure.
Yeah. See? And
sure.
That used to be very simple back in the day.
That was simple.
Actually, it's coming back to me, and it does make sense because I remember it now.
Well, I mean, so...
But I haven't had to mess with that in, 20 years? Plus?
Well, the thing is that, like, you know, it is the direct, like, that direct descendant of role-playing games coming from old-school war games.
Yeah.
You know, and it is a direct, like, movement from that. Because if you put that in any war game, you know, if you put something like that into Warhammer, it'd be like, yeah, that's how that works. That makes sense, you know?
Right.
Like, I could sit here and tell you about, you know, your fucking ballistic skill versus your toughness and your, you know, and, like, how, you know, how all that works. And it's like, you know, if I were to just sit here and just tell you how it worked, it wouldn't make sense.
Right.
And it takes several times of just doing it.
It does.
And
it's what you just get used to and everything else like that too, so.
Because the dice rolls and all of that, like, armor bonuses and stuff like that is all supposed to mimic the randomness of combat, of how all that works. It's not supposed to be, you know, triumphant beating the odds like you're like in a role-playing game where you're trying to succeed a lot more.
Right.
It is from when you needed to simulate the chaos of warfare. You know, you can't have, because you're never going to have a just straight up, you know, oh, well, my group of people versus your battleship, and my battleship's going to win because its stats are higher, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. They simplified a lot of stuff when 3rd edition came out, which was really nice, but that was also a real huge learning curve for a lot of us that actually played 1st edition, 2nd edition for years before that. But yeah, it is just a way to you do a lot of narrating in the games and stuff like that. But it was also a way to eliminate arguments about stuff that happens by actually giving it a quantitative number that you can use in a roll to kind of take out the argument about ifs out of this whole system. So it has its good points, also has its bad points. Because I can tell you right now, I have a game system up here, which is the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons battle system. Okay? Yeah. And this is all about mass combat with armies. And I went through the book, I don't know how many different times when I was trying to do this when I was younger, and I'm like, this is way too much. I'm like, this is mass combat rules for like the war games that they used to play.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, this is way too much stuff to try to actually put together and figure out and everything like that too, so.
Because you're, you know, simplifying it to be, you know, a one-on-one combat game, to, you know, move it there.
Yeah, but then have to blow it back out to be 1,000 upon 1,000 people.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like you're moving it through a grinder where you're taking your war game stuff, you're putting it here, you know, simplifying it, making it, you know, a role-playing game, and then when you try to add mass combat rules, you don't blow it back up this way. It's still going through that filter of the RPG game.
Yeah, but that one blows it back up, and it is. It was.
So what I'm saying is, it's difficult. It's difficult to like take it back to that, and like it's one of those things. It's just sometimes it doesn't work, and it's almost like you have to play a different game.
No. We actually went down and when we did a mass combat in a games that we played, we actually broke it down to risk. We had total number of characters. Exactly. We divided them up by tens, and we did that, and we did that with risk style. Has simplified everything so much better.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly how that would work.
Yeah. So okay,
and that's the trick, right? Yeah. I had the idea of this like massive Star Wars campaign where like, you would be doing a bunch of stuff and it would be, if I ever got to do it, I would love just the absolute just massiveness of this thing. And it would never work and it would have to be, tooled down. But like, imagine you have a Star Wars RPG campaign where, you're playing like the background of everything. So everything's happening normally, but you're going along the timeline, right? You're going along the timeline of Star Wars, and as you're doing more stuff and like adding to the campaign, adding to Star Wars, you then you have your dog fights and stuff like that, and like you have your actual battles, and you do that in like X-Wing, or you have your huge battles that you do in like Armada, and those change how each of those games work and stuff like that. Like, that'd be interesting. Like, you pull all those things together and I mean, now it's more difficult because, I don't know if you know this, but how you walk into every store and they have that huge thing of X-Wing and Armada ships?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware, but they very recently discontinued those games. So, it's done. We salute you. X-Wing and Armada.
So
I heard it was fun though. I never played it.
I didn't either or anything. So okay. I do want to give you one compliment though. When I throw the pictures up here of the dice rolls, that's a very good looking dice box you have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah, that was a Dice Tower Christmas present though. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was cool when I bought that thing, and because I took it out and looked at it before I sent it to you, and I'm like, this is like really cool.
Here, you know what? Because here it is. Hang on, let me switch so that I can see myself, so that I can. Here it is. It's right here. And then you just pop the top off, and it's all right there. I'm trying not to drop the dice, because then you pull this out and you can see it on the pictures,
right?
But it's got the dice tray there, and then it's got the dice tower right here. That boom.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, very very
like
cool.
It.
Yeah, it was actually built really well and stuff
it's
like
great.
That.
Oh, absolutely. Because there's some that and the nice thing about this is because it's made out of something. While it's not like as like super like duper like, I don't want to say it's not high quality, because it is high quality. It's very nice, but it's not like like I have a Wormwood dice set or like box, and it's really nice. But all the times I've moved and like I've had international moves, and it's snapped. It's snapped every single time, and like luckily you work with wood, so you were able to like glue that thing back together, and it looks great. It looks back to new now. Except for the seam where I glued it one time. But that thing doesn't stand up to like shipping it regularly, whereas this thing does.
Yeah. Yeah,
so all good, and this is my standard. Just take it with me whenever I play RPGs.
Cool. Okay, we've been sidetracked here. It's not a problem.
Oh yeah,
tangents galore.
This is the tangent podcast.
Okay. So okay.
That's what the T in TTRPG stands for, right?
That's it.
It's tangent role playing game.
Yes.
All right. So the next stuff, there's not too much left, right? I was because I've never really, whenever I played this, I haven't really used Starship Combat. It's been an option, but it's never been used, right? Yeah. And so I never really had to look at it and learn how to play it. So I was very pleasantly surprised. It's real simple. It's real simple. Just like everything else, it is very easy, you know? And I like how it gives the characters more things to do than just pilot or shoot, right?
Okay.
So of course, if you are in a starship combat, you are going to have a huge focus on whoever your piloting characters are.
Right.
If you don't have somebody who can pilot, they're taking a back seat. Okay. And
yeah, because you have a specific skills for the pilot.
Exactly. So this is their time to shine. You know, just like if you're on ground combat and, you know, you have your character with a lightsaber, they're going to shine there. You know, and that's just this is the ebb and flow of how this stuff goes.
Okay.
It's natural. Now, this allows you to do different things here. You have initiative is the same way. It's a cool or a vigilance check. And you know, you have your different PC slots. And in this way, right? Because usually when you're doing this, you're going up, you know, just like in episode 4, you know, that immediately I think of, you know, you're fighting X-Wings, or, you know, you're fighting against TIE fighters, right? You're fighting against these individual starcrafts. And because there's only one pilot in those, they're taking one action and one maneuver, or 2 maneuvers.
Okay.
Right? Whereas you have your PCs, the big long list of PCs, doing all individual actions on the same turn. So you already immediately have player turn advantage.
Okay.
Just right off rip, because everyone can do different things. You're not piloting and shooting. You can have the pilot do cool pilot stuff and do cool maneuvers. You know, you can have them take 2 maneuvers every single turn, and, you know, do things like accelerate, decelerate, fly, evasive maneuvers, and stuff like that. You can have them do those while you have people on your guns shooting the enemy. While you also have somebody doing, you know, the mechanic stuff.
Okay.
And stuff like that, right? And then you've got a whole big thing here of where was the thing? I have it in the thing, but I put it real small. So there's things that you can do, the checks that you can make in your turn while everyone else is doing all the starship combat, right? They have stuff that you can do to give you an idea of things so you're not left out, you know. Okay. There's plotting a course, which is, you know, an astrogation check. You've got co-pilot, which is serves as vehicles co-pilot, managing systems and auxiliary equipment, right? And what that is doing is, on a successful check, each success downgrades the difficulty of the pilot's next piloting check. So you're making it easier for the pilot to do all their stuff, right?
Okay.
You can do jamming, boost shields, manual repairs, fire discipline, scan the enemy, stuff like that. You know, you are doing a lot of stuff that is, you know, helping out everything else. You're not just, you know, while there's stuff going on, you're not just sitting there in, you know, feeling left out. So,
okay, that's cool.
But it works the exact same way. You take your turn, you know, action, you do anything that would require a check. You know, you can do your damage controls, your combats.
Okay. And this would be different if you're piloting a single fighter.
Yeah, so if
over a bigger starship.
Yeah, let's say that you are you still have access. If you are just by yourself in a starfighter, you can do all of these actions. All of these actions you are able to do, with the caveat that you are the only one in there.
Okay.
You know? And, you know, unless you have an R2 unit in the back, you're the only one, so you can only take an action and a maneuver. Unless you have, you know, unless you have, because maneuvers, I forgot to mention when I was talking about maneuvers, some abilities on people's trees allow you to take multiple maneuvers during a single turn. So you have your like pilot stuff where you have pilot abilities that allow you to sit there and and fly better. So they're going to let you do more actions and do better at those actions instead of somebody who's a ground combatant.
Okay.
That's in the air.
Okay, makes sense.
Yep. So it's the same way. You take your difficulty versus your skill, and you do the dice pool. And I hope that you see, and I think it's when you see it, when just like the check I showed with those pools, everything is in the player's favor. You're not gonna add one of the red dice where you have like a despair ready unless it's gonna be really bad. And like right. The difficulty is generally in contention, and like you're sitting there, like you can argue it up or down depending on what's going on. But generally, it's things are pretty easy, as you can see.
Okay, yeah, it does look pretty simple and straightforward. So
this is definitely a feel good narrative game. Like you're gonna win. You're an action hero. You're a hero in a Star Wars story. You're gonna win.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the system. That's everything we got.
Okay, sweet.
Do you have any more questions? Do you have any curveball questions that are
not right offhand? No curveball questions. So yeah. You know who's on first, right?
No, who's on first?
Okay. Thanks.
I was going with the bit.
I know, but you already messed it up. Okay. We're all good there. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you very much for that one. So, what do we have in store for next week?
That's a great question. That's going to be a surprise for the viewers.
Okay. We'll just do that.
Unless, do you want to talk about the new previews they have for the 1D&D?
Yeah, I could do that. That's not a problem.
Excellent.
Okay.
I'll look at it. Yeah, we can come into it with our own thoughts and everything.
Okay. That'll work. So that'll be something to look forward to there. And with that, I think we are about done. Do you got anything that you wanted to plug? Ideas, thoughts, comments?
No.
Okay.
No, not really.
Well, and then I am going to end this by plugging my other channel that I have. I have another YouTube channel that I've been running for a couple years. It's called 13 Peppers. I eat spicy, hot peppers. I go through the history of them if I can find them, go through discussion, show you what's going on, and then eat them and taste them. So awesome. I have just started my new spicy boxing series. My first episode went up just a couple days ago. And I've gotten peppers in my garden. I have 160 different varieties, and they are starting to ripen up. So I'm going to have a lot of peppers to eat here soon. So
a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of content. A
lot of content coming up. So
subscribe to that. Subscribe here first, and then go over there and subscribe there to see all the stuff.
That'll work. I would appreciate it. But with that, if we don't got anything else, I'm going to say I am Ralph. I am Nerd.
I'm Connor. I'm Son.
Okay. And you all have yourself a very, very good day.
Bye.